He's an amazing singer, songwriter, musician, and actor. He has released 17 top studio albums, including 34 hit singles. The multi-talented Mr. Rick Springfield. Rick, how we doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, my friend. And I know you were born in Australia, and who were you really listening to growing up, and what was that experience like for you that first time that you picked up your guitar in your early teens?
I remember the first time I actually held one, I was like 12 years old, 11 years old. I was living in England with, my parents had moved there, and some guy had one backstage at a school, fair that they put on, and it was amazing. I just fell in love with it right away. I eventually got one when I was about 13, and started playing around 14, 15 when the Beatles and The Who and all those kind of guys started hitting.
Okay, great. And I know you were a part of a lot of great bands during the early part of your career, including the band Zoot. But what's the story behind the beginning of your solo career?
I started writing in Zoot. It was an Australian band, and then we had a bunch of hits in Australia and had a lot of press in Australia. And I was also writing a lot of songs, and there was a lot of songs that didn't fit the Zoot format because we actually morphed into kind of a very guitar-heavy band, and I'd written a lot of ballads too at the time. So this guy came up and saw me in the Zoot and said, "I have a deal over here in America with Steve Binder, who had just directed the Elvis Presley special, the TV special that brought Elvis back." They said he's looking for Australian talent, and we'd like to bring you over to America and do a record. So I kind of jumped at that one. Then spent the next 10 years here trying to make it.
And I know back in Australia you recorded your first solo album titled Beginnings in London, and the great track that I love on that album was Speak to the Sky. How were you influenced to come up with that great tune?
Oh, I was writing a lot of dark stuff at the time. Well, I've always written dark songs, and my mom said, "Why don't you write something nice, Richard?" Which is typical of my mom. So my dad got very sick at one point, and it was kind of came out of that whole experience. It was kind of a prayer, very different to what I ended up being known for, but it was very, it was kind of the early 70s, so it was when everybody was kind of delving into all kinds of bags.
Right. Okay. And then I understand during the early 1970s, around 1973, you came over here to America. And how was it different recording here in the States than recording and writing over there in your hometown of Australia?
Oh, I had a lot more, obviously a lot more excitement. I mean, I came over here, then went straight to London to record my first 2 records, but I lived here. But it was really exciting. I mean, I felt like, this is where I wanted to be, and that was the first initial, step I needed to take. I just kind of didn't really think it would take as long as it did.
I hear you, Rick. I hear you. But, I mean, throughout the 1970s, I mean, you recorded some great, incredible material. And in 1981, the album Working Class Dog was an instant success here in the States and spanning the great classic tune, Jesse's Girl. Now, Rick, I got to ask you, I've heard so many different stories on how you came up with Jesse's Girl. And I heard one story where you were taking a class here in Los Angeles and you fell in love with somebody's girlfriend in class. Is that right?
It was more lust. Fell in lust, to be honest. It wasn't long enough to be loved, but I was taking a stained glass class. I always used to model with clay and things and things like that when I wasn't writing. I'd do something like that. So I'd always wanted to learn how to make stained glass. So I found this guy in Pasadena and started going to his classes on like Sunday mornings. And one of the girls who was also taking the class was really caught my eye, and she was really hot, and she had a boyfriend. So I talked to him and everything, and nothing ever came of it, or nothing that I wanted at the time ever came of it. And but I got a pretty good song out of it, so I'm okay with that.
And how did you come across the Sammy Hagar tune, I've Done Everything for You? I love that song.
Keith Olsen actually brought that to me. Keith had just done Rumors with Fleetwood Mac and Pat Benatar's second record, and was very hot producer in L.A. at the time. My manager, who owned Sound City, the studio Sound City, where all this stuff was recorded, went to Keith and said, Rick Springfield's got a deal with RCA. Would you do us a favor and do a couple of tracks with him? So Keith heard all my demos and pulled out Jesse's Girl as the one he wanted to do. And then he was also just starting to work with Sammy, and Keith's a great cross-pollinator, and he had this song that actually Pat Benatar played it to Pat, and she turned it down because she thought it was kind of too macho for her. I've Done Everything for You. So Keith brought it to me, and Keith was Keith at that point. I said, yeah, sure, I'll record Happy Birthday if you want at this point. I just, want to get a record out. So I did that, and they both worked out.
Very cool. And I always loved, Rick, I got to tell you, I grew up here in Los Angeles, and when I was growing up, I didn't really have a lot of toys. I just had records, and I always remember the album cover of Success Hasn't Spoiled Me Yet, and I love that album. And how were you inspired to record the tune Don't Talk to Strangers?
It was actually, I had the verse. I'd actually written another song called Spanish Eyes. It was on an album that was never released. It was the album I did before Working Class Dog. And I'd always liked the verse, but thought the chorus never went anywhere. So I took the verse after Working Class Dog. You spend 5 years writing the first record, and they want the second one in 6 months. So I was kind of scrambling a little bit to put the second record together, but I was also very inspired, which is why I wrote so many songs for it. But I'd always liked this verse, so I had this idea for a chorus, and put it together with this older verse. About the verse is a couple of years old, and I actually played it to Keith, because Keith did the whole second record, Keith Olsen, and I played all the demos, and he actually didn't like Don't Talk to Strangers at first, the demo version. So I was sure it was a good song, so I went back and re-demoed it. I originally did it with like a bit of falsetto and everything, so I went back in and re-demoed it a little tougher, and he liked it, and so we cut it, and that was the first single.
Another great platinum album, that was a platinum album here in the States, and another great one was the album Living in Oz, and I always really liked the tune Affair of the Heart. Was that co-written by Danny Tate?
Well, I was actually at a premiere for the Live and Kicking TV a live show that I did that was originally filmed at Universal, and we had the premiere for that. I was in the bathroom, and this guy walks in and hands me this tape and says, here's a song me and this guy wrote, love you to record it. So I just stuck it in my pocket and said, yeah. Got into my car and kind of threw it on the floor of my car, and I was driving into General Hospital one morning looking for something to play, and I saw this tape line there, so I put it in and heard this great opening riff coming out of it, this, pulsing synth. And the song itself didn't really connect with me, but that opening kind of with the synth thing did. So that was how Danny and the guy who gave me the tape, who actually has passed now, I think he died a few years ago, Blaise Tosti. He was the one that walked into the bathroom and gave me the cassette, but Danny, I know, is still recording and doing music.
And that's what I love, Rick. I mean, it's one thing to play this music here in Los Angeles on radio and, on the internet and all that great stuff, but it's so great to have you guys come into the show and talk about the stories behind the music. I just think it just gels everything so well together.
Yeah, there's a lot of, I think most writers have surprising or certainly can add a lot more to the whole scope of the song by talking about how they wrote it. As a writer, I love to hear other writers talk about that kind of stuff too.
Yeah. I'm just a music buff just to begin with. But
yeah, that's great.
How did the movie Hard to Hold come about?
That was I was looking for an acting project. I'd left General Hospital and was touring a lot, and we were looking for an acting project that could that'd be worthwhile doing. And at that point, I was kind of I might have been a little bit full of myself and thought, this script isn't that great, but I can make it something great, because the initial script was pretty awful, and but I thought, with some great songs and we cast it right, we could do something good with it. So it's kind of, I have a very mixed feeling about Hard to Hold, because I know it probably wasn't the first best choice for a musician trying to show his acting chops to play a musician in a movie. A lot of people thought I was just being me, but got a couple of good songs out of it, so I'm okay with it.
What was that experience like for you, Rick, to be a part of Live Aid in 1985?
It went pretty fast. It was, like a hurricane backstage. Everyone was there trying to get everything together and make sure it all worked. So you kind of were just standing by, waiting for your turn to go on, and then you're on and off and back on the road doing your own show before you kind of realize. So it went pretty fast, but it was a great experience just because the sheer size of the whole thing, and I think we all still believe that music could change the world.
Tell me about the amazing team of musicians and the Sound City Players. I know you guys played Sundance Film Festival up there in Utah, and you guys just stole the show. I heard many critics and many people in the business that saw you guys play, and they just said it was incredible.
Yeah, we've done. We did one in L.A. We did one. We just got back from doing one in London, which was I was there for about a day, and I think we're doing one at the South by Southwest event in Austin. It's great. The band is really they're all really great guys and great players, and everyone backstage is fans of everybody, and they're all really good people, and it's a very cool thing backstage, which I think makes the live show really fun as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. And now I'm hearing, Rick, that through your agent that you're returning to General Hospital.
Yeah, just for the 50th anniversary. I feel like, I kind of owe it to General Hospital to be there for the 50th anniversary. It's a pretty big thing, and it was a very important part. I was only on the show for about 18 months initially, but it was very instrumental in my first, getting out there and my first notoriety. And Gloria Monty, who cast me, who has passed on now, is, I still have a lot to thank her for, so kind of part of that too. And my son is actually going to be on the show. My real son has got a part on the show too. So. And
tell me, Rick, are you working on some brand new material in the studio, or what are you currently working on?
Well, we have a new record out now called "Songs for the End of the World" that I think is the best record I've done so far, and we just started touring with that. We have a whole new production stage-wise, and doing a lot of the new songs in the show, and we're still very hard pushing that. I did the most recent thing was, of course, the song I did with the Foo Fighters, "The Man That Never Was." It's in the documentary, is also they selling the CD on iTunes. But I'm going to start writing again soon, and we'll be getting another record out soon. And I'm starting to look to write with other people as well.
For more information on Rick, please go to rickspringfield.com. Rick Springfield, thank you so very much. I really appreciate it.
Hey,